All right, so I left off last night talking about that I got really depressed after my grandfather died. That's kind of where the thing cut off. So I was like, I'd started to talk a little bit about how my family had tried to force me into, had kind of been setting me up to become like a dealer or a prostitute or whatever. Like that was something that they basically tried to do my entire life. And that after my grandfather died, that kind of messed me up. It wasn't just that he died, it was that my family murdered him. And it kind of put me in a bad headspace. And like, Tim would be there with me a couple times whenever I would go and like try to talk to my grandpa before he died and stuff. And I remember like one of the very last things that my grandpa said to me before he passed away, while he was actually allowed to speak to me, because whenever it got towards the end of the week or whenever it went into the second week of him being in hospice care, he was not allowed to see me, talk to me, or anything. Everyone else was allowed around him. And he would even like reach out for me from his bed and stuff like that. And they would get in his way and not let me like talk to him. So like Tim had actually gone to visit him like with me to visit my dying grandpa, who wasn't actually dying. My grandma just put him in there so that she could poison him and kill him. It was so horrible. But like my grandpa was asking me for a cherry limeade and stuff from Sonic. It was so terrible. And like, um, honestly, I might have thought about sneaking it to him, but like Tim was there and I was worried he would tell on me and stuff, and that would get me like cut off from like the chance to like actually talk to my grandpa and stuff, or to be there to like see what was happening or whatever. And Tim even tried to be like, hey, let's sneak him a cherry limeade and stuff. But like, I knew that Tim was one of the bad guys that was secretly working with my family. So I was trying not to fuck around like that. Um, and one of the very last things that my grandpa would say to me while he was still able to talk to me was that the biggest mistake that he ever made was deciding to party one night and get really drunk when he was supposed to get on board this really important ship, this really famous ship that he'd worked really hard to be accepted into. And he said that he made it there late and that he watched his ship as it was taking off over the ocean, and that his ship took off without him. He said that it was the biggest mistake of his entire life, that if he could go back to any moment in his whole life, that he would go back to the night before that, and that he would make sure that he didn't get messed up. He would make sure that he made it to that ship. And he said, don't let your ship take off without you. And it took me a really long time to figure out that he wasn't talking about boats. And that story reminds me a little bit of my own story, even in some ways, because it almost seems like that, in addition to other stories that my grandpa told me, it almost seemed like people were deliberately setting my grandpa up for failure. Like, he even told me he was on his way to do some kind of work or something for the military one day, and like somebody knocked him out in the back of the head, and he didn't know what happened after that. Like, he was able to tell me like some MK Ultra stories that were pretty brutal. My grandpa knew some stuff, and he, for the most part, kept his mouth shut about a lot of those things until the very end. And in the very end, the stories that he began to tell me were completely different than the stories that he'd told me his whole life. But anyways, Tim was almost kind of like I was worried that if it was a money situation and everybody was getting paid and stuff like that, I just worried that something was maybe going on behind the scenes that I didn't know. Like, my grandma had told me that if my grandpa got better while he was in hospice, that he would come back home. But it had seemed to me like a couple days before he went into hospice that my grandmother had like done things to set the situation up to where he would go to hospice. And it also seemed like Tim had something to do with that, because she did this thing where she like acted like she was running through the house frantically, like, oh my gosh, where's Larry's will and all this stuff. And she was literally just doing that, and he was sitting beside me, and I guess he was supposed to gauge my reaction. They were gauging my reaction to my grandmother mentioning a will and acting like she was looking for it and stuff. And I was just like, whatever, because I knew that they were gauging my reaction. It was just really bizarre. I was like, oh my God, what? I was like, oh my God, my grandpa's will. I was like, oh, there must be money involved, and that's why they're doing this. They're probably doing this over the house and the money and shit. I was like, dang, this shit goes deep. So anyways, yeah, my family, which I already made a video about this, they kept my grandpa in hospice for 2 weeks. He even started like doing pull-ups on this bar above his bed and stuff like that. He was exercising while he was in his hospice bed. And the doctors and nurses actually said that the dude was getting better, that his organs began to improve, which was the second time that I'd heard that, because my grandma once told me that she put my grandpa into a nursing home where his organs began to improve. And that was the first time when she said that I realized that my grandma was poisoning my grandpa on the down low. And then when she said that his organs began to improve when he was starving in hospice, that's when I really knew she was poisoning him. But here, she didn't have access to his food the way that she had before. And so he would start to get better in these places. And the only way that she was going to be able to, you know what I mean, make the situation worse the way that she needed to was if she got in there and administered more food or drink to him. But while he was in hospice, she put him on the do not feed, you weren't allowed to give him water or anything. So the dude just laid there for 2 weeks begging to leave, begging to be let out, like was technically okay other than he had a hole in his throat. People get holes in their throats sometimes. That doesn't mean that you need to euthanize them. You know what I mean? But that was like some of her reasonings was like, oh, he's got a hole in his throat. He's just not going to make it. He was only 73. Like, I know that that's old to some people, but he still had an easy 10 to fucking 25 years left on him. He had the will to live. I mean, he wanted to live. Really hard he wanted to live. At the end of things, I walked in on my grandma poisoning my grandpa with a fucking thing of applesauce. And he was dead later on, and they sent me my dad to be like torturesome sent me pictures of my dead grandpa, like, and they acted like they were waiting on me. Well, I thought that I was showing up too, but Tim and Sean would end up like kind of like doing some things to make it to where I didn't actually make it to the hospital that night to bid farewell to my grandfather. And like, it had my head fucked up. Like the way that they went about killing him, the way that everyone went along with it, the way that, you know, that they were just cruel and disrespectful too. And then immediately afterwards, they were like having this dude try to beat me to death. And just the fact that they'd hurt my grandpa, you know what I mean? Excluding the beating to death later, you know what I mean? Excluding all of that, just the fact that they had done all of these things and orchestrated, my grandfather's death in such a way, and how obvious it was. And how could it not have been obvious to the hospital? Like the hospital had to have been in on it too. There was just no way that they weren't. So here I'm like surrounded by my whole family. None of them had the heart to just let my grandfather die naturally as an old man. They all worked together to make sure that he would die. My dad and my uncle wrote him letters. I wrote him a letter too. I never gave him my letter. Whenever I went in and looked at my uncle and my dad's letters, they looked exactly like mine. Because my grandpa was the father figure in my life, basically, who was the one who raised me. And it was just so bizarre that my dad and my uncle's letters to my grandpa were almost exactly the same as mine. You know what I mean? Like, that was just so mind-blowing to me. And I never did give my grandpa my letter, but if I had, he would have found out like how weird it was. Like, and I think even Tim, I'm not sure if Tim noticed that too. I feel like someone else, I feel like he noticed that and brought it up too and was like, this is weird, because it was like, not my uncle or my dad or any other men in my life who were fucking my mom. None of them actually were a father figure to me or fatherly to me. It was this grandpa dude who was actually my fatherly person, you know what I mean? Who treated me, at least while I was younger, he treated me better than everyone else. But suddenly, whenever I was, out in the country and needed like groceries and things like that, they would show up and they would just bring stupid shit. They would just bring like dumb, cheap, weird shit and like a bottle of ranch, like not even stuff that you can make meals with. And sure, they ate fast food a lot, but that didn't mean that they like, it's not like these motherfuckers were from a time when they didn't know what kind of food to pick up to fucking cook meals, This financial manipulation trash is something that my family has really exerted over me, like so terribly within my lifetime. They basically held my kids hostage. Me and my kids have basically just been held hostage our whole lives, dude, in these fucking Section 8 housing projects or wherever we go. So like ever since I was a young teenager, they've actually been doing their best to force me into dealing in prostitution, which I never actually became a prostitute. But for different times, especially back in the day, I was a little bit of a dealer-ish type person, but but I wasn't like moving like a lot. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't doing like no one set me up like fat or anything like that. And I knew that I was being financially manipulated. And I knew that I was being like basically held hostage behind the scenes by my family, and that they were paying and incentivizing the people in my community to basically hold me in place. They would all make sure that I wouldn't be able to work. If I had a vehicle and I was doing something with it, like going to work and stuff, they would try to sabotage the vehicle to where like you can have a job or you can have a vehicle, but you can't have both at the same time. Or you can't have a job because you don't have anyone to watch your kids. And it wasn't just, I originally wasn't asking boyfriends to watch my kids so that I could go to work. It wasn't like that. The very first, like, I actually went through this Mountain Heart or some kind of weird program like that in the beginning. Who I worked at the sewing factory over here, and I tried to get the program for West Virginia that watches your kids and stuff like that. I think it's called Mountain Heart. I can't remember. But I started to go through them when I first began to work when I was very young, and I was pregnant with my daughter and stuff. And I was taking my toddler at the time to, this babysitter chick, and she was not taking care of him. I would pick him up, and his diaper would be so full of piss that I would have to change it in her fucking yard before I could put him into my car. Or if I put him in the car, I would have to take him in his car seat, everything in the fucking house, take his diaper off of him. It would spill shit it was just so terrible. And the inside of the car seat was just completely drenched. Like the bitch didn't fucking change his diaper all fucking day long. And my kid never had diaper rashes. My kids never had diaper rashes. Fuck that trash. So like these Mountain Heart care providers would actually work with the bad guys to make sure that I didn't have fucking childcare, and so that I had to fucking quit my fucking job. And they actually got me fired, like in a roundabout way did get me fired one time. Like they would call my workplace, and my workplace would also be on the phone listening. And then they would there was one time Mountain Heart called and said that someone had lice in their house. And they had to let me know. Well, my toddler at the time had his head shaved. You could look on his head and see that he didn't have lice. And the bitch called my workplace and fucking embarrassed me while my boss and them were listening and was like, you're going to have to come get your kid because someone had lice or whatever. It was just these people working together to try to get me fucking fired, which was exactly what happened. They fired me because I was pregnant and my kid had lice. So basically all of this, I'm telling you, ties into these are just a little bit of shit that was going on, but I'm basically trying to explain to you that it was controlled that I wouldn't go to college. My mom, as soon as people knew that I was filling out college applications, they had the women in the fucking college treat me like trash and make fun of me. They literally told me that I was too poor to go to college, like being complete cunts. Like, this, it didn't matter if I tried to go to school or if I tried to work or anything. My family would behind the scenes sabotage everything. This is fucking human trafficking, okay? So basically, I've basically been trafficked since I was born. I've got videos on here about, you know, my memories as a toddler and as a baby of, you know, walking the catwalk and these people taking videos of me and pictures of me and telling me about how they're going to make so much money and people are just going to love these pictures and videos and they're going to help me to buy sparkly clothes and I'm going to be able to buy whatever I want and it's going to be so great. And then I lived in poverty for the rest of my life. You know, and they never stopped taking those pictures. They never stopped making those videos and they've all banked off of it. And I have been forced to live in poverty while they try to force me into prostitution or into making pornography or into being a dealer or into being a drug addict or fucking committing crimes or anything that they could possibly fucking get me to do. And yes, I did occasionally fall into the traps and I did live a whole ass fucking lifestyle for years that revolved around what I thought was helping people, which was helping people find the substances that they enjoyed. And to me, that was like, to me, I was committing, like doing a kind thing. Like I was helping people. It would take a while before I realized that I was helping people die and that I was helping people lose their kids and I was helping relationships be destroyed. It would take me a while before I realized that I was helping people with poison. Sorry if people just expected me to all of a sudden know it and have it all figured out whenever I was 13 years old and you guys were introducing me to all the shit, or, you know, sorry I didn't have it all figured out when I was 18 or 19 or fuck even when I was 30, you know what I mean? Maybe I was a late bloomer, but I was also trapped in that situation. People had been trying to kill me, like real death, murder, death stuff, and that had been going on for quite a while. There was all bad vibes around me. My parents had kind of kept me in those apartment complexes and like the very most that they would do would be like to send me $100. And so right after I had my first baby, I lived in Valley Green where I paid $32 a month for my rent. And I took care of a baby by myself. And my grandparents would send me $100 a month to live off of. And that went on for years. And I would end up having like a couple kids and everything. And we would survive off of $100 a month. We would get food stamps and that would cover our food. But as far as living expenses go, I would use that $100 to buy the diapers that I needed, for my kids, the diapers, wipes. I would always get that crappy Suave shampoo and conditioner that was $1, basically the very cheapest products possible. I would, you know, dollar dish soap, dollar, everything, just to get me through one more month. And I would expect that, you know, my family would have been more interested in involving themselves in the lives of my children, but they weren't. My family was never involved with my children and I. My brothers and sisters were never involved. The only one who was actually kind of involved was Sean, who's like my disabled brother. Sean was around, but that was because my parents were trying to use Sean to destroy my life. So Sean would be like somebody who would answer back to them, I guess. But Sean would also be somebody that they could have do fucked up shit. Um, and he might have been okay with it for a while, but I think my brother might have got to where he wasn't really okay with it anymore. And especially after seeing Tim beat me to death, and after, you know what I mean, being part of, like, my brother actually went through some shit too, and I think that he began to not really be very appreciative of the entire situation. Not sure, but I think that they may have tried to poison him because they have a life insurance policy on him, and they made it seem like it was an alcohol issue that he had because his liver was shutting down, but I'm pretty sure he was probably being poisoned. After my grandpa died, and I realized that my whole family were murderers, and that the guy that I rode in with was also a murderer who was who was like working with them against me. And, you know, there would have needed to be some kind of incentive, whether that was that he was sleeping with some of my relatives, one or more, or they were giving him money, or whatever the case was. He was secretly being treated better than I was. That was really messed up. So yeah, they would like, my whole family was pretty well off. I mean, they all had their own homes, they had their bank accounts, they had all kinds of stuff, vehicles, jobs, money. Like, you know, my grandma had like $2,000 or $3,000 in checks rolling in every month for nothing, just because she was married to my grandfather. And you know, she had her own. She has, you know, a fucking house out there that he apparently left to me. You know, my folks all had places. They had cars. My aunts and uncles. There was no reason why anyone in our family should have needed to sell drugs or sell their own asses or commit any fucking crimes at all or murder anyone to improve their lives, because their lives were actually okay. Like, they were like happily middle class. They weren't even like lower middle class. Like, they were doing fine. And I think I was 29 years old at the time all of that was going on. This time frame that I'm describing to you. But I end up actually for the first time in my life, basically, hang on, let me think about whether or not that's true. It was kind of like, for all of the depression and the poverty and lack and comparisons, and, you know, even though me and my kids were going without and like starving and things like that, I still wasn't willing to go out and commit those crimes and shit like that my family wanted me to do so bad. Like, they wouldn't admit that to me, but I knew that they were trying to set it up. They paid the neighbors. My grandma paid the neighbors. I'll get to that part in a second. But after my grandfather died, after I realized that my whole family murdered my grandpa, and that like no one around me, and then just to watch Tim and all them like just get shit hammered, like after that every night, like no one gave a single fuck that my grandpa died. Like, it was fucked up, dude. So before he died, he was not treated very well. Like, he was being abused, he was being starved. It was really bad. My grandma was intentionally starving him and intentionally humiliating him in front of the whole house. She would stop and just humiliate the dude. And after he died, I actually did get so upset and like was just like so alone, and like I had nothing. It was like I had to like readjust everything that I was doing with these new lenses, knowing that everyone around me was a fucking ruthless killer, that they just like killed my fucking old grandpa, who was like not it was definitely not fucking okay to kill the man. Yeah, I fell into a pretty stark fucking depression. And the drinking that I did from that point forward for a while, and the activity that I engaged in, and whatever I chose to do after that would just be a fucking downward spiral, basically. I hardly gave a fuck about Tim anymore. Like, he was trash. Like I said, so I ended up basically going and committing an act of prostitution. But I did break up with everyone first, and you know what I mean? And I left the house and shit like that. I was like, fuck you guys, you know what I'm saying? And I was out, and I couldn't actually do it. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't actually do it, but I was trying to force myself to anyways. So I went and got myself shit hammered fucking drunk, like completely stupid wasted, and was like trying to just do my best to put on this fucking act and pretend that I was somebody that I wasn't, so that I could fucking do this or whatever. And anyways, like, so I ended up getting like a little bit of like gas money and things like that, a little bit of like food money, gas money, things like that. But it was, that was a setup, and that dude recorded that. And that dude was married, and he also owned a business nearby that narcotics agents would sit outside of and stare at all the time. And I think that I admitted it to Tim. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't really try to hide what I did that hard. And I ended up fucking like telling the dude. And then that was whenever he started to beat me up or whatever. Well, the whole thing was a setup from the fucking beginning. And then they would set me up and then he would set me up to beat me and all this shit. Tim doesn't really have any room to talk. Tim was at Ledbetter's, okay? And mind you, I didn't become a criminal career prostitute, okay? It's part of a human trafficking situation. You know what I mean? I basically have been a prostitute without knowing since I was born. People have been making money off of me this entire time. And Tim, like, straight up told me that he was at bars and that he would go out back and dudes would pay him to suck their dicks in the fucking alley behind Ledbetter's. So he really doesn't have any fucking room to talk. That was a fucked up situation. However, it was a setup that I didn't just fall into, I practically ran into it. My family didn't actually want me to be a prostitute. It was fine with them if I was going to be a drug dealer, but it wasn't okay with them if I was a prostitute, because so long as I was a drug dealer, they could secretly bring in the supply, make the money off of me. They ended up finding all different kinds of ways that me being a dealer would benefit them. But if I were to become a prostitute, it would not benefit them the same. Basically, if I was a dealer, they could have all these different people around, all these different people at the same time, and make them, which I guess you could do as a prostitute too. I mean, I'm not sure how it works in that way, but I mean, I can only get, I mean, I figure that it's a lot the same. I figure it's the same as a lot of other criminality, behavior type shit. I know that there are a lot of people like, oh, why would you ever admit anything incriminating about yourself? This is my life. This is the story. These are stories, real stories from my life and who I really am. How can you love me if you don't know who I really am? I really want you to know who I am, people. I want you to know that you can come out of addiction and risky behaviors and human trafficking, depression, and all that. But they couldn't let me, like, if they knew that I was just like pushing some stuff, then they would know, how much money that I was going to have. And I might not make any more than $50 or $100 off of, whatever I accomplish in a week's time or a few days or whatever. Could even be longer than that. Who knows? You know, it just depends on what's going on, what you're getting rid of, and that sort of thing. What time frame, just different stuff like that. But if I were to become a prostitute, then it would change the game up, because they might not be able to reach into or control every single situation, even though they would want to, and they would be the ones sending everyone to me or whatever. They would also have orchestrated those people to hurt me or rip me off or whatever in some way. You know what I mean? They wouldn't have actually allowed me to do that, because had I become a prostitute, it would have actually been a step up from the life that they were forcing me to live, like as a slave, basically. A prostitute would be a step up from slavery, because that prostitute is actually allowed to like sell themselves and make money, whereas a slave is going to be controlled in a much different way. They might not be allowed to just go sell themselves and make money. And that was exactly what happened in my situation. Was people saw acts of prostitution in my situation as a way of liberation in my case. Like, I'm not kidding. Prostitution would have been a step up from the life they made me live. I can remember even like trying to talk myself in, like, so many times I tried to talk myself into becoming a prostitute. It was so difficult. Like, it's really such a like I it's I really don't want to suck anybody's nasty old stinky balls, okay? A lot of these dudes are straight grody. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just don't want none of that. Please don't make me do it. That was 10 years ago, okay? I'm 39 now. So, you know, I hope that you won't judge me too harshly. That was like a situation where they set it up to make it seem like I betrayed Tim or whatever. But Tim, I'm pretty sure, was already banging out my sister, my cousin, my fucking brothers. He might have even been fucking my grandma, dude. Like, Gerald was straight fucking my grandma. And then there ended up being like a time frame pretty much directly after that in the wintertime. Yeah, it was still wintertime because my grandpa had just died in December. But like, they did this thing at my grandma's house. I don't know if it was my grandma who drugged me or what happened, but they ended up knocking me out for 3 solid days. And apparently they had lots of people in there while I was passed out like that. And they actually did this to me more than once. Well, they might have just done this just once, but they actually did other things that were similar to this that were also really terrible. And I'm not sure if Tim wasn't secretly brought back into that situation, and was allowed to assault me with all of these people while I was unconscious for that time frame. Apparently, my sister Cassidy recorded that shit and sold it online. And, you know, that Tim would have been hooked up and teamed up, paired up with my sister Cassidy and my cousin and my brothers. And they may have all of each other been fucking each other, like, all together. So when this guy tells you what a whore I am and how terrible I was to him, just remember that he fucked my whole entire fucking family, and that he also sucked dick out behind Ledbetter's in the fucking alley. He also taught children how to be prostitutes so he can pretty much get fucked. The pot calling the kettle fucking black, dude. If the only people that he fucking hangs out with are people who actually do, by their own accord, sell their own fucking faces and asses, then I don't understand where the fucking judgment is coming from. This dude knew me since I was 13 or 14 years old and helped my family to abuse me. You know what I mean? It wasn't until I was 20 fucking 9 years old that I actually ever fucking did anything that was even remotely fucked up. And it was after they brutally fucking killed my grandpa, after they fucking starved him and poisoned him and fucking humiliated him in front of me. Like, it was fucking severe shit. And I realized that that's no excuse for risky behavior. But at the age of 29, for me, it kind of fucking was. I was pretty fucking upset about the entire situation. There was no one to tell. There was, you know what I mean? If I'd have made a YouTube video about it back then, I probably would have got shot in the face and survived that too. I hope that it's okay for me to share with you the mistakes that I've made, you know what I mean, in my lifetime, and that I'm not just up here just telling you that I've been a fucking angel my whole life, and that I've been perfect my whole life, and that I've never made any mistakes. Like, I'm really not trying to misrepresent my situation the way that everyone else likes to. I'm pretty sure that they not only had hidden cameras in the apartment I was in up here in Cambridge Heights, which was the last apartment that I actually had. They not only were sneaking in and out of that apartment, and I know that they were doing shit to my food in there. And they had cameras up. They were in an apartment above me. When my little boy would come to do a home visit, which they only let him do a home visit like 3 times or something like that, because they knew that there were cameras in my house, and they were uploading the stuff to the internet. They were live streaming me. I guess I don't know if I was live streamed 24/7. I don't know, but apparently these videos were being uploaded to OnlyFans and to different websites and on the dark web. I'm pretty sure had a camera in my daughter's room and potentially in both of my bathrooms. I'm told that there was imagery caught of my children using the bathroom, getting dressed, things like that, which basically makes it to where everyone involved in the situation with the cameras in all the different apartment complexes, including the management, they are basically all very potentially going to be charged with CP. That's another thing. Is it's one thing, the mistakes and fuck ups that the adults do. It's one thing for us to involve each other in the abuse and the sexual crimes and rapes and weird fucked up shit and recordings, but it's extra fucked up that you guys would go the lengths to involve children in the shit. I don't give a fuck whose fucking children they are. The fucking shit really needs to fucking stop. I mean, gangs, cults, organizations, secret societies, whoever the fuck is doing it, basically need knocked the fuck off the map. I'm someone who believes in God, like really, really super duper believes in God. Like, I would not be alive right now if it were not for the grace and mercy of God. Like, only by supernatural reasons am I still alive delivering this message to you right now. Throughout all the trials, tribulations, throughout all of my success and failures, I would not be alive today if it weren't for the grace of God. These people, money hungry, worked really hard to do what they've done. I mean, they made entire websites of me while they basically held me hostage, made sure that me and my kids only lived in these little Section 8 HUD apartments or whatever, where, you know what I mean, we have to stay isolated. Nobody can know us unless I'm, committing a crime by like selling someone a fucking bag. As long as I'm committing crimes for people to tell on me for, or for informants to be set in, or, you know what I mean, for people to wear wires on me or whatever, as long as I'm doing something detrimental in my life, it was allowed. But as soon as I start to go to fucking work, you know what I mean? As soon as I start to try to become a recovery coach for Celebrate Recovery, or, as soon as I start to actually do really well at work, then people have to fuck my shit up, or then people got to call in and start talking shit, or they gotta, the very last time, whenever I stopped working, like whenever I quit my job as a manager at Pizza Hut and stuff, it was when they gave me my kids back. Well, I'd already even told my kids, I was like, dude, they've had me do all this, but I was like, I'm not going to be able to maintain this after I get you guys back, right? I was just like, there's just no way. You know what I mean? I was like, and they'd actually had Amanda Wenzel, the management, steal a $700 rent check from me. And in order to cover her own ass, she hit up that Brandy chick from Mountain Cap or whatever and asked her to please start paying my rent again. So for the third time, even though you were only supposed to use Mountain Cap once, they manipulated the system to be able to use Mountain Cap a third time for me. And I'd hope that they would do it a fourth time after all of this, honestly. But so Mountain Cap all of a sudden again started paying for my rent, which meant that I didn't have to pay nearly a grand, you know what I mean? I didn't have to pay nearly $1,000 a month anymore for my rent. And now I'm like, well, weird. Like, that was the only reason, that was like the only motivation that I really had to work, was that I have to pay my rent. Now I'm like working without purpose. Like, this is fucking weird. And you guys just like took me backwards from, you know what I mean? Now I was in the habit of being really super responsible for all this time, like paying my rent and working and stuff. And now you're going to like tell me that I don't actually need to work or pay rent anymore as I'm getting my kids back. Like, that's weird. And, to just realize that both Cambridge Heights and Mountain Cap were involved in this shit, like in this whole, you know, trafficking and crime thing, gang stuff, like that was really shitty. Like, here's these people who are supposed to be upstanding citizens working for, you know, the public, and they are, you know, deliberately part of this human trafficking shit, right? So I would end up trying to talk to my sister about the whole, like, that there was obviously a human trafficking crisis going on at my house, and you know what I mean, at my grandma's house in Texas. I tried to kind of talk to my sister about it. Well, my sister, because she was part of it and because she'd already fucking recorded these videos of me and sold them, she went to my stepmom crying about how I'd written to her about weird stuff on the internet or whatever. And then my stepmom came in like all freaking out, like all huffy puffy. She was like, how dare you put your kids at risk by being around all of these people who were people that they fucking sent into my life and set me up with. She's like, we're going to just send you back to West Virginia. And I'm like, okay, thank God. You know what I mean? Because they'd already done things to try to kill me like 1,000,000 fucking times, dude. Like, it was bad. And all I was doing there was just like tiptoeing around, dancing around, getting killed over and over again and not dying. Like, they even rigged my fucking car to blow up. I put the key in the ignition, I turned the shit, and it fucking burst into flames, dude. Trying to turn the car back off and fucking put the fire out and shit like that. I probably could have just driven the whole rest of the way just fine, but I went back to the house and parked it, which was pointless. I should just continue to drive it. So yeah, within this time frame, I guess that Tim hooks up with my cousin or something like that, and even like goes to another state with her. I'm not sure if he I'm not sure if he marries my cousin. I'm not really sure what happened with all that. And I mentioned something like that months ago while I was in the park. And I think it was Shane that I mentioned it to. And he was like, oh, well, that's funny because Tim's over at his house. I'm talking about something that happened 10 years ago. Jeez, you know, even if it did happen 10 years ago, I mean, people are really good at keeping shit hidden. So whoever he hooked up with or whichever one of my family members he fucked, I don't even give a fuck. Like, the dude was literally that big of a fucking paid ass piece of shit that I could give a fuck less if he fucked my grandma. I don't fucking care. I've just had to figure out how to fucking basically just make it on my own. I was trafficked across the fucking United States just now for 3.5 years. Some kind of federales came up over my YouTube feed and said, hey, there are people who are trying to traffic you right now, and you need to make sure that you don't drink, that you don't use, and that you don't get it on with anyone. And they said, these people are trying to traffic you, and they're trying to give you AIDS. And they began to tell me that basically almost everyone in my situation from the past had contracted AIDS, and that they had actually traveled all over the world with the money that they stole from me, and that they were using my money to sponsor an international child trafficking and ring. And like that is how my life began too. I mean, my very first few years of life were people telling me how good I looked and, you know, that they were going to sell these pictures of me. And while my family tried to act like they were straight and that I was the problem one, they were actually addicted to cocaine, I guess, and they were coke fucking dealers. And they were paying the people around me. They were, I guess, they all link with each other over the Telegram and Signal and Discord, and they send each other cocaine through the mail, and like wherever I stay, that person will get a package of cocaine for keeping me there and being my handler or for setting me up or whatever the fucking thing is. I'd seen the behavior before, but it wasn't actually until I stayed the night with this deaf kid who they paid, who used Telegram, that he basically told me everything, even though he was deaf and he wasn't really supposed to tell me what was going on. And I watched him go to the mailbox, come back, and pull out fucking cocaine from a package. That would be a town where I was set up hella heavy by the cops, and I was even SA'd by a cop who recorded it in his room. So it goes from my family doing it to Tim doing it to complete strangers doing it. And I even heard that that guy wasn't really a complete stranger after all. I heard that that guy that was a tactical unit, whatever, investigator who SA'd me on video and stuff like that, well, it was just a barely, like he was just really rough and like kind of trying to act like he was beating me up and stuff or whatever. It was stupid. But I heard that he had actually molested me when I was a baby, and that they basically got him to, that he either paid to have access to me again, or I have no idea, but he was secretly recording it in his bedroom, and I knew that he was because he had cameras all throughout the house, and he was acting a certain type of way to me at first, and then he like got up and was like trying to hug me in front of this camera and stuff like that. And so I knew that it was all just for some kind of like dark web show type shit. The police had to get involved in that part because that guy was really rough with me. And then he handed me $500 afterwards, which was not something that we agreed upon. It was not like, I was not prostituting myself to him. It wasn't like supposed to be like a form of payment or something like that. It wasn't like that. And, well, he didn't, it was like something that he'd mentioned earlier, but he didn't say, oh, if you do this, then I'll give you $500. No, because I would have told him no, because obviously if I'm being trafficked across the fucking country and I'm being watched by the feds and the fucking military who are talking to me on the fucking YouTube, then I probably don't want to be accepting $500 to fuck somebody. You know what I'm saying? That would be fucking a little bit detrimental for me. So what the dude does is he beats me up a little bit and records it. We didn't even actually get it on or anything. He just beat me up real bad. And then he tossed me some money. And then where he dropped me off, he set it up to where I wouldn't be able to spend that money in that hotel when he dropped me off. He just, he called the women and told them not to let me stay there. And then I was stuck outside for a second, where he sent this dude in a white truck with a white camper back, which was in another state too. They robbed me twice. Whoever used that car robbed me twice, and I think it's boot rot in them. And that dude, that wiggly little crackhead dude that was sent to me afterwards, that trafficker tried his best to steal the money that the other dude had just given to me. So it was like, not even like a complete prostitution thing, but they really did try to make sure that I was hurt afterwards, that I didn't make it into the hotel, that they tried to make it to where I was robbed. And the dude actually did rob me for a second. And then he realized that I had his name on this paper where we'd gone to a fucking hotel room the night before. And I know that I crashed out at that hotel room. And like nothing happened or whatever. I don't know if he went to sleep or not, but I know that we definitely would have had separate beds. And that dude tried his best to rob me of that money. But I had the money on me and I had my ID on me, which was another thing everybody kept trying to steal. And I had a piece of paper that was the invoice from the fucking hotel that we stayed at the night before. Or I don't know if we stayed there or if he just checked out of that hotel. It's like I can barely remember staying the fucking night in that fucking hotel. So, but I don't think that I should be expected to, because it's been however many years. And that's been while I've been trafficked across the country over the last 3.5 fucking years. I'd also like to say that when I was about 30, whenever I was in Texas, I did try to call the police and let them know that I thought that there was some human trafficking activity going on around me and that I had evidence of that and I would like to turn it in. And the cop said, well, do you smoke marijuana? Which it made it obvious that he was working with my family, or that my grandma called him, or somebody, you know what I mean? Somebody told him to say this dumb shit to me. He said, well, do you smoke marijuana? It doesn't even need to know me from Adam. Here I am. I was just like, hey, I think there's some human trafficking shit going on. I'm in fucking Texas. That shouldn't be that far out of a fucking allegation to claim. And he's like, oh, well, if you smoke pot, then you're probably just crazy and you don't know what you're talking about. We don't really care what you have for us. And so they just like didn't accept what I had to show them, which was dead people in children's clothing or missing people's clothing and shit like that. Or that's what I thought, honestly, because these people had actually showed me a bag of souvenirs of people's clothing who they had hurt. But those are people who can't get in trouble, so they're allowed to show you whatever they want. Yes, like all of these people work for the feds or the government or whatever, so they're allowed to just do whatever they want. They're allowed to molest whoever they want or have anybody raped or sell whatever videos of people being raped or molested on the fucking internet and all this shit. And they're allowed to do all that sort of shit and get away with it. And they're allowed to sell their own asses and fuck everybody and send cocaine through the fucking mail and travel internationally to molest little kids and sacrifice them and drink their fucking blood and weird shit and have a good old time. And, you know, it's like, you know, these are my captors, you know what I mean? And they're allowed to do fucking anything, but the person who's made to look like the biggest trash and shitball ever is their victim. You know what I mean? Is me. And it's in part because I'm the firstborn of a secret Luciferian family. I'm the firstborn of a family of people who are connected to the Eastern Star cult. And basically whoever is associated with the Eastern Star cult or in the Eastern Star cult or in the Freemason cult, they're expected to make a tribute from their families or to offer up a sacrifice from their own personal families for these secret societies and groups. And my sister and stepmom just so happened to be in the Eastern Star cult. Basically, the Eastern Stars are almost like fluffers. They kind of prepare the kids to be, you know what I mean? It's like if there's a woman in the house who's involved in the shit, being a nasty molester and shit, a lot of the times the women will kind of prepare the kids to deal with the men and shit, which is fucking extra sick. Extra sick job. Have no fucking respect for the Eastern Star cult whatsoever. So I'm pretty sure that before my oldest son was even an adult, that they pulled him into this shit. The same with my other kid. Even before they were an adult, they got pulled into this, and there's no telling what happened to them or what has been done to them or what they've had to endure. And I basically haven't been able to interact with them in any genuine way since they were about one of them was 17 and the other one was, you know, only 14, 15 or 16. And it's really, those were really the last times that I was able to interact with those people genuinely because they of course pulled the next generation into their slavery campaign, and they made sure that we're all separated and stuff like that, so that none of us can warn each other, defend each other, protect each other, work together, none of that. So, you know, they destroyed my whole life from the very beginning, inside out, every step of the way. And then basically the only thing that I ever did that was worth a fuck was raise kids and take care of kids. And they had to take care of the kids even before they were adults. You know what I mean? So it was like I fucking lost them too. And but they really chased me around for the littlest kid, who ends up being like one of my family members' kids or something like that, or somebody who was more so acquainted with my sister. I guess he married my sister or something at some point. And she couldn't have children. And in order for, this is just what I was told, in order for him to be able to be initiated into the secret society, cult organization, or whatever that he wanted to get into, they told him that he had to sacrifice his firstborn son, or something like that, but he didn't have a firstborn son. Or they tried to tell him that he had to sacrifice his secondborn son, but that he didn't. They tried to, this is the way that they tried to say it on the internet, was the secondborn, but I'm just going to assume that they really meant firstborn, and they were just being cody so that people didn't, that not everybody completely got it, kind of thing. But apparently the kid was conceived for a sacrifice, and that everybody really just thought that I was that big of a fucking whore piece of shit. They thought that I was just going to continue to fucking use while I was pregnant and just be a fucking piece of shit like that. And I would never fucking do some shit like that. So just like a whole bunch of people who don't fucking like, they might have spent a little bit of time like assaulting me and shit like that, but nobody actually ever really got to know me that well. And they fucking really thought that I was just gonna like be pregnant and like do a bunch of drugs and shit. It didn't really work out for them the way that they wanted to, or the way that they wanted or expected. And so what they tried to do was set it up to where I would either be killed during childbirth or sometime after, one or the other of us, and they tried really hard to get the baby taken away right after I gave birth and stuff like that, which they did by C-section. And they told me that they weren't sure that they would be able to save my life, but they would at least try to save my baby's life. And then they did an emergency C-section, which was an operation that I had never needed before. And I'm not sure it was necessary then. And they were trying their hardest to get me to agree to let them tie my tubes or to make me infertile, which they try to do every time that I would have a kid in the hospital. They would try to talk me into letting them fix me like a dog or cat. And I kept telling them, no, I still want to have the ability to create children if I want, even though I'm poor and you guys don't like me and I just had this baby on a medical card and you guys hate that. It doesn't mean that I need to be, neutered out here. Spayed or fixed, or so fucking rude and condescending. And they were so upset that I was like, no, I'm not sure that I want to have to, I don't know. I'm not sure that I want to stop having babies yet. I don't want you to perform a surgery on me so that I will stop having babies. And so what she did was she cut a chunk out of my stomach area. She cut the skin from around my C-section. And then she said, you might not ever want to get pregnant again, because if you do, I cut that skin there and I gave you a little bit of a tummy tuck. And so if you ever get pregnant again, you might just rip open right there where I took that skin. And so that was like their roundabout surgical way of ensuring that even if I did get pregnant, that I wouldn't be able to carry the kid to full term. It would be like some really risky pregnancy or something like that. It sounds absolutely horrible. I did get pregnant once after that, and I was planning on carrying that kid, and that person aborted my baby deliberately, and he was also sent in by Tim. That was one of the people who sent him in. Basically any of these dudes who Tim could get to sign up on his Fuck LaDonna campaign train and shit like that. He apparently gets a lot of people involved in his shit, and he can get them to fucking do anything he wants. He's a regular fucking Charles Manson. But I would end up getting sent from Texas back to West Virginia, where I would basically immediately get knocked up by a fucking stranger, thinking that I was getting knocked up by Tim. And I would then straighten up. I would stop using drugs. I went to sleep for about 6 weeks and woke up and felt recovered enough to, start to live my life again. I uh, I would end up, when I actually did have my baby, I was at my aunt's house, and my aunt and her girlfriend were also pulled into the trafficking stuff, and were being paid to do messed up stuff. And I had to actually run away from her house. They sent Thunder and Mike Lowe. Tim would actually then send Thunder and Mike Lowe in to do all kinds of weird shit. Thunder was the person who I dated, and what they would do was they would try to put Thunder's name on my baby's birth certificate. And at the time, I thought that it was Timothy Strother's baby. You know what I mean? And I was like, no, I said, no, I'm not going to put you as the dad on the birth certificate. But I was like, and he was just so upset. He's like, I'm going to help you raise this baby, and you can't even, I want a baby so bad. Thunder's just completely full of shit. He's like, please put my name on the birth certificate and all this shit, because I guess they're trying to kidnap the baby, right? And I'm like, look, dude, I'm not going to fucking commit this crime of putting someone else's name, knowingly putting someone else's name on the baby's birth certificate as the father. I was like, I'm not going to fucking do that. I was like, if you're really shitting your pants about it that much, I could potentially give the kid your last name, but I will fucking pay to have that changed later, or I will charge you to have that fucking changed later if you fuck around. And he was like, okay. And so I end up giving my little baby, who I just, I give birth to the baby, and I end up giving him one of the traffickers' last names, hoping that I'll be able to change it around in a few weeks, or, in a few months or years, or however it takes, It's still going to be 5 years till the kid starts school. So I'm like, I'm just going to go along with what these traffickers are fucking saying and doing, because I don't want to put myself in any fucking further harm. And it was like I was already in harm's way, but I was walking on eggshells, and I would occasionally have to go along with things. Otherwise, it would make it obvious that I knew what was going on, and I couldn't make it obvious that I knew what was going on. Otherwise, the people around me would panic and do really fucking terrible shit. So they end up putting Thunder's last name on my baby's last name. So it's like this really weird name that I wasn't even planning on giving him. You know what I mean? Hopefully it could still be changed. And then they orchestrate having me, they set me up in a hotel to go through this really messed up stuff. And they then steal my baby's birth certificate and social security card and other stuff from me. Well, weeks later, my aunt's girlfriend, AP, she brings me my kid's social security card and birth certificate that they stole out of my shit. And she's written onto the birth certificate, she's written Thunder Dean Whaley's name in with her handwriting. So everybody, I don't know if she got paid to do that, but they were fucking obsessed with trying to make it look like that Riker was Thunder's kid. Riker was not Thunder's kid. I met Thunder when I was 8 months pregnant. The next thing I knew was Tim was trying to say that Riker was Thunder's kid. So basically, Tim sent Thunder in to do all that shit so that he could accuse me of it being Thunder's kid, when he knew that he allowed me to get SA'd and impregnated by someone who I don't know, who's also a fucking family member, and that they dedicated that baby to a sacrifice. And there's a lot of people who were upset that they weren't able to sacrifice the baby, apparently. And then I think that they took and copied his birth certificates and social security card and all that stuff, and that they used that identity in another place. I don't know if they got life insurance policies on the kid, but I'm pretty sure that they let someone use his identity in Puerto Rico, from the sounds of things. I guess people in Puerto Rico needed to be using both mine and my kids' birth certificates and social security cards and IDs or whatever to get out to Puerto Rico or something like that. I have no idea. But they've had a shitload of people all involved in, the stealing of identities, the stealing of children, the illegal photography and videography. And yeah, I guess people thought that I was going to die during that C-section. They pulled this thing down to where I couldn't see them doing the C-section, which sucked really bad. And then my aunt recorded it, and I guess they sold that video too. They just sold it. It was supposed to be a video that they expected me to die during or whatever. They never let me see the video of my kid being born. I never got to see my third kid being born at all. And people just set it up to where I was running. I just had to run from traffickers and bad guys with a fucking infant and with my little girl. We would end up in different places, and then we would end up in a tent alongside the river on a floodplain, where I spent months. Someone set my tent on fire while I was in it. I held it together with safety pins. I was in there with my little baby. And this bitch set my fucking tent on fire. This bitch who was with Liberty. It was either Liberty and his bitch or just the bitch that he'd invited from out of state. I'm not sure that Liberty would have set the tent on fire with me and the baby in it, but I don't know. I just didn't think that he did at the time. But it was either that bitch or it was Nikki or it was whoever, but they deliberately set my tent on fire while I was in it with the baby. And what they did was they took my flip-flop, the rubber flip-flop that I had outside, and in the center of the tent, I had a iron skillet with tea lights in it, and that was how we kept my fucking tent warm. Well, this bitch picked up my fucking flip-flop from outside, and somehow she put the flip-flop on top of the fire. And so I woke up to my burning rubber flip-flop smoldering in the fucking tent, and I have to get up completely blind, unable to breathe, and undo these safety pins to get out of the tent and to let this burning smoke the fuck out of the tent, put this fire out, and my baby's back here in this black smoke and shit. They fucking done some fucked up shit to me, dude. Extra fucked up to do to a baby who ain't even fucking 6 months. I don't even think he was 6 months old yet. Or he might have been. Yeah, he might have been a little over 6 months old because he was born in October. And this would have been about June, July, something like that, August or whatever of the summer. He definitely wasn't even a year old yet. It was super fucked up. The kid couldn't even walk yet, and they were trying to fucking snuff him out and fuck up his whole life, steal his fucking identity. Don't know if there's life insurance policies on the kid. It's a fucking mess, dude. I would be accepted into Beverly Manor apartments from the floodplain in Beverly. Excuse me. And it would be my third, or maybe, my third apartment in Beverly or something like that. And Beverly Manor Apartments was always where I was getting stalked real bad also by people who lived right beside me or above me or whatever. This whole having an apartment around me and spying on me and listening to me and trying to set me up and sending people to me, that shit has gone on since I was very young. They would use the apartments around me so much to do whatever they were doing to me that they at one point emptied out an entire building in Beverly Manor so that they would have all of those apartments open for whatever they needed them for while they were trying to do all this shit to me. I'm not sure if I wasn't that I wasn't taken while I was unconscious from my apartment to one of those other apartments at some point. I don't know. This really, really big lady that lived all the way downstairs who kept begging me to take my little toddler baby with her to church. Please let me take him to church. Oh, please let me take him to church and shit. Fuck no. I knew that lady was going to end up. And that was a lady who paid dudes to get it on with her and stuff like that. She paid them in fucking pain pills and stuff like that to get it on with her and stuff like that. I was like, hell no, you're not taking my baby to church, bitch. Yeah, I've known this dude since I was a fucking teenager. He's just been a fucking straight up piece of shit. There were several times in my life whenever I actually admired the dude. I thought he was a really gifted musician, that he was really funny, that he was really intelligent and stuff like that. There were different times that I really respected and admired Tim, but he, deep down inside, the raw truth was that this was a fucking evil ass motherfucker, and that the people around him did not want him to succeed. They did not want him to be okay. They definitely didn't want him on some fucking dean's list. They didn't need him to be, graduating from some fucking great ass college experience. They didn't need him to upgrade in any way or to make money. They needed him to be dependent on their fucking money and on their hand. So basically, no one in this situation, not me, not even some of the bad guys who were paid and hired to do this fucking shit to me, like kill me or have me assaulted or exploited online, even they weren't allowed to prosper. Even they weren't allowed to graduate from fucking college and shit like that. People sabotaged them too. Really sad to me that all of the people involved, my brothers, my sisters, my cousins, my aunts, uncles, people like Tim, people like all these motherfuckers, Nick, all those people, they all had the chance to be good. They all had the opportunity and the chance to be good and not try to kill, you know what I mean? And sexually assault and rob and, steal identities and, get life insurance policies out on people without their permission and things like that. I mean, these people all had the chance to do it right and to show love and compassion and to say, hey, I don't want to have anything to do with this. This is too much for me. I'm sorry. I'm going. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to say anything about it, but I'm going. Like, people could have done that. I'm not sure that there weren't people who said no along the way, but there were plenty of people who didn't. And it's fucking sucked really bad. I know that at one point, I think that they tried to say that I was a child molester because whenever I was dating Nick Lowe, like I was praying in the bed, like whenever I was getting my littlest boy to bed and stuff every night after I got him back, I was praying in the bedroom with him. Well, they had Nick there to be an abusive retard. As soon as I got Riker back, he was there like just to be a fucking retard. And I told CPS, I told the police, I told Celebrate Recovery, I told all these bitches, I was like, look, unless you guys can help me with my stalkers, then nothing is going to change. As soon as I get my kid back, we're still going to be under attack the way that I have been my whole life. Like, if you guys can't do anything about the stalkers and this fucking human trafficking campaign and all this shit, this whole network of shit, if you guys can't actually do anything about it, if you can't hold any of these perpetrators accountable for anything that they've done to me my entire life, then we're just going to have to keep fucking dealing with this. And there's going to be no way that I can just continue to maintain what good that I have. It's all just going to be fucking brought down. We're just all going to be attacked really badly. Like, I tried to fucking tell people that. No one fucking listened. That was like exactly what they wanted to fucking happen. So yeah, then I was saying like, I had started to become, I was taking classes to become a recovery coach, and Tim and JW worked together, and then JW came in with somebody who was in a fucking invisibility suit. Now, whenever I was explaining in the last video that basically somebody got me pregnant while I was laying in bed staring at the window and stuff like that, and I looked behind me and I was like, did they go under the bed? It could have been that they were standing there with an invisibility shield or suit in front of them, making it to where I couldn't fucking see that anybody was there. And I forgot to mention that in that video. There's a few things that I forgot to mention in that video, but anyways. So they had me assaulted like that, which JW recorded just the same way as they all record. Oh yeah, that Nick dude, they sent Nick in. Oh, that's what I was trying to tell you, is they sent Nick in. Well, I was praying with my kid and Nick burst into the door like he was trying to catch me doing something wrong. He was like, "You're praying with your kid?" Like, he kept trying to bust me molesting my kid. I'm not sure who the fuck told him that I molested kids, but it was really obvious. It was really fucking terrible. I was like, nah, bro. I was like, yeah, I really am just praying in here with the kid. We live in fucking hell. This is the only good thing that he's ever been exposed to, or he probably will ever be exposed to, is his mother fucking praying for him. Like, you can come in here and pray with us too if you want, motherfucker, you fucking demonic bitch. Just be like, oh no, and fucking sneak out and shit. And then they had JW walk in and film me being assaulted. And then they drove me out of my apartment and to a house out towards Audra, where they had bestiality sacrifices with women and horses, which they drove me the fuck out of town with. I really wasn't interested in hanging out after that. So I took my very littlest boy and I fled. And I had to leave my older kids behind. It sucked fucking really bad because CYF, the CPS system, and my lawyer and attorney and all them, they fucking set my shit up to where I wouldn't be able to run as soon as I got my kids back, which was what I really needed. I needed to get my kids back and then fucking run away from these people with my kids. But they made it to where I only got my littlest boy back, and then I had to have 50-50 custody with my daughter, which was the most fucked up fucking agreement that anybody could fucking ever ask of me or whatever. And here my daughter had to go back and forth every week, a week with me, a week with them, a week with me, a week with them. It was the most fucking horrible fucking shit ever. And so I couldn't just run away with my kids. I had to be there. I was expected to be there for my daughter, 50-50 custody, and I couldn't fucking do that, dude. Like, they ran me out of town. I ended up going 400 miles away to tell cops in another state and technically another country, Seneca Nation, what was going on down here, because I couldn't tell the cops what was going on down here. I even found CP in one of their phones, and I felt like there was no way I could tell the cops here, like, because I think that the cops here are part of the trafficking ring, and that they have been since I was a kid, because every single complaint that I've ever made, no one could ever do anything about. I mean, I remember being 13 or 14 years old complaining to you guys about being SA'd during the Strawberry Festival in a fucking abandoned house. And the cops told me that unless I could describe the guy's boxers, that they weren't going to press any charges against him, and that I was just making the fucking shit up. And I swear it's just the cops, part of the same ring that my parents and everybody's in, and that they all fucking have each other's backs. So there's no way for the trafficking victims to get any fucking help at all. We can't even tell the cops. I couldn't even take the actual evidence of CP of this dude and his old lady and her baby in the bathtub together. I couldn't even take that to the police here, because I know that the police are so fucking heavily a part of this trafficking ring. So, like, right now as I'm talking to you from a really dangerous place. Still, I'm always in a dangerous place, a dangerous situation. I don't want to fucking live like this anymore. It's fucking horrible. I'm almost 40 years old, and you guys have made me live like this my entire life. And then I ended up with amnesia because none of the cops would really actually take my reports. I didn't actually get amnesia from witnessing the women being slain. That was really hardcore. Like, that was enough. But the fact was that I went to police afterwards, and they treated me like I was retarded and that they were waiting for me. They treated me like they were waiting for me, and that I was another retard who they couldn't fucking listen to. And I had just traveled 400 fucking miles to those motherfuckers. And yeah, so that's basically how I'm treated by law enforcement everywhere, because I don't know, maybe they're all part of the same sex trafficking ring, little kid sex trafficking rings. It's highly fucking irritating, and there needs to be some space that you guys can provide to victims of this sex crimes and trafficking and shit, because it's really uncomfortable to have to walk in and have a cop just staring at me right in front of the front door, being like, okay, explain to me what the situation is. Well, there was these women, and they were, this was happening to them, and all these other sexual things happened, and here's a bunch of sexual information, here's a bunch of sex crimes and molestation and all this shit. And the cop's like, could you please give us a different and better way to fucking report this shit? Highly uncomfortable to talk to some of these dorks, for real. And they make it that way deliberately because they don't actually want any of their sex offender buddies to get busted. It's fucking really annoying. So yeah, they pushed me out of here with sacrifices and with filmed SA. They almost broke my leg. I was supposed to wear a cast over my knee, but I ended up being forced to live in my van. I ran away with my baby, and I'd actually had a dream months before whenever I worked at the Bicentennial, as the night person, I had a dream in that time frame that there was a flood, and this flood water, I was standing there with all three of my kids, my older two and the little baby, and that flood waters were coming at us, and I could only choose one of my kids to grab a hold of, that these waters were going to be coming so fast and so rough that I was only going to be able to rescue one of my kids. And I chose to rescue the littlest one because I thought the oldest kids, they can maybe save themselves or one another, but the littlest kid, he's not going to be able to make it on his own. And so I grabbed a hold of him, and the floodwaters took us all. And that was destined to happen in real life, just in a very much different way. You know, that I had to take my littlest boy and run, and I couldn't even say anything to the other kids. I just had to go. They actually followed me across the country while I was running with my little baby, with my little boy, living in a fucking minivan. They tracked us across the country. They followed us everywhere that we went. The first place I went to, I actually put my kid in school. The woman trapped us there. She was like a trafficker. She took my social security card and everything. She was supposed to be a doppelganger for me or whatever on the down low. They followed us throughout the country. They would go into like wherever I stayed, and they would put little trinkets from my previous apartment or from out at Jason's house or whatever. They would like put those things around me, like plant them everywhere. Of course, I knew everything that I had with me because I'd packed my shit myself. We only, you know what I mean? And they would come in and they would leave little trinkets behind to let me know that they were there and that they were stalking me. There was one hotel that I stayed in Tatum where they were like literally getting above me in the fucking attic, crawling over me, over top of my kid and I, and like listening to us or watching us through the ceiling or something. It was fucked up. At John's house, they were under the bed and in the closet, like for real. My kid was like, "Who is that, Mom?" He was like, "Somebody's in the room with us, Mom." I'm like, "I know, honey, let's just try to ignore it." Because that was all that I could do. Like it gets fucked up, you guys. They tracked my little boy and I across the fucking nation, and then they set him up a million different times to get fucking taken by CPS. And then finally, they did get him taken. And after that, I was on foot. And I would get a car really quick, as quick as I could, and then they would run me out of town. They would have my boss poison me because I actually did so well that I had the money. I had a car. I had the money to go get my own place. I took a week off work so I could do that. My boss poisoned me. And then she and the sheriff from Taos, New Mexico chased me, and whoever else, Tim and all them, I don't know, they all chased me to Gulf Shores, Alabama, where they fucked up my car, and I basically had to leave it there. They set things up to where I would only be able to sell it for $500, even though I'd just paid over $2,000 for it. And that's how they do with all of my vehicles that I've ever had, is they will work with the community around me to railroad me into only being able to fucking sell a vehicle that I purchased for more than a couple grand, it's all that they would ever allow me to have, is a car that I only paid a couple grand for. But they would railroad me to make it to where I would only get $300 out of that car or $500 out of that car. And these cars were worth more than that. It's all part of that financial control. It's them in this overbearing weight of them trying to control my whole life, trying to control my finances and everything, because as soon as I have my money, I'm going to sue the shit out of everyone who's fucking responsible for this shit. And I'm going to be able to fucking lock myself in a house and have the privacy that I want. I'll probably even leave the United States because of how bad this is and how long this has been allowed to go on, and just how corrupt the system is, and that everyone in it decided to become a fucking child sex trafficker, I guess. It's really fucking bad, you guys. If those aren't terminologies that I'm allowed to say on here, I don't understand why the fucking news reporters are allowed to say them. So fucking stop. And then basically they worked with this network all the way across the fucking country, and they've just made it to where I can't actually connect with anyone. They also have control over they've hacked into all my accounts. This is what they've done since I was 11 years old, is they have access and control over my accounts. If people try to send me messages, they just delete the messages and the notifications before I see that person ever tried to contact me. They control my Facebook dating, making it to where like the only people that I can meet are the people that they have like send me requests or whatever, that if anyone else tries to write to me or speak to me, they just delete that person off of there. And then as soon as those people are deleted, they go to this little collection of people who you can't see who they were. You can't contact them ever again. You can't hardly see some of the conversations. Oh, I forgot to tell you guys that whenever that just been setups the whole fucking way through, and it's like I can't actually make it anywhere where I'm not meeting people who are a part, who aren't, you know what I mean? Everyone seems to be a part of this trafficking ring and shit like that. And I forgot to mention that whenever they had that tactical guy assault me, that when the cops showed up to his house, basically because of his involvement in the dark web or the feds or whatever the fuck was going on there, all of our conversations disappeared. Our entire conversation on Messenger and, the Facebook dating stuff was still there. And I actually took screenshots of that and I posted it on one of my last Facebook accounts before you guys had me robbed of all my cell phones in Reno. And the police helped with that too. And now someone has access to those accounts because, especially in Reno, they can take those phones, hook them up in the gambling places, and see everything on the phone. They can unlock any phone. So they ended up with 5 of my cell phones in Reno that they can just get right into. But yeah, like, they can even make entire conversations where obviously it is that person who is guilty and responsible of crimes. They'll just make the whole conversation disappear to where you don't even have any proof. And now you're the bad guy. You don't have any proof that they are anymore. That was the only time in my life that I watched an entire conversation completely disappear. Like it never even happened. Like the thread was still there and nothing was on it. So bizarre. They ran me out of here with human sacrifices. I ended up with fucking amnesia for over 1.5 years. And then as I began to recover from amnesia, they had my boss poison me, which fucked me up really bad for months. I'm not entirely sure what they gave me because the hospital wanted to play in my face and say that they didn't detect anything, because these hospitals are not supposed to be straight with me either. So it's like, as far as I'm concerned, I'm being betrayed by law enforcement. I'm being betrayed by my family. I'm being betrayed by hospitals. I'm being betrayed by all this stuff. It's the fucking end of the world. This is a tribulation event. Like, it really is that bad. I'm not sure that it can even be fixed at this point. It's probably time to just get right with Jesus. I'm not really sure what the future of America even has in store, but what's in store for them because of this activity. Like I actually am sure of what is in store for them, and it's not good. It could be the complete devastation and annihilation of this country. And I'm not saying that to be mean or nasty. I'm saying that because of all the dreams that I've had about it, because I literally had like prophetic dreams. I know that in another video, I said that I was psychic. It's actually called discerning of spirits, and it's part of, it's grace of God. It's the grace of God that allows me to be discerning and to see that. And also because I have the Holy Spirit, he allows me to see things through his eyes sometimes. I really, truly believe that. A lot of people think that I'm a bad person. Apparently, even law enforcement considers me one of the bad guys, which really kind of fucking sucks. I feel like I never even had a chance within my lifetime to be good, that everyone is just like tried to force me into a life of crime and poverty and torture and just darkness and nastiness. I feel like I haven't even been given a chance to live the life that I actually want or that I ever would have wanted. I've just been completely controlled by my whole fucking family this entire time, and little bitches like Tim, who didn't have anything to do with it from the beginning, have for like over half my fucking life now because he was fucking recruited or whatever. It's just crazy how somebody who could have been a good person, he could have, you know what I mean? He could have gone places, he could have done things, he could have gone far, he could have been a good dad, he could have been a good person, but he chose instead to be like a real nasty, like Charles Manson style stalker or whatever, and just completely destroyed his life, and, you know, thinks that he's cool. And so many people think he's cool and stuff like that. They're not going to think he's cool. You know what I mean? When his fucking face is in the paper because he's a, you know what I mean, pedophile who fucks with kids and, you know, hunts down, you know, stalks a single mom and gets her to lose her kids and sets her up in all these different heinous ways and, you know, films her and sells the videos online. And they can make up all kinds of excuses saying that the reason why they sold those videos was out of revenge or to get back at me. They've been selling videos of me since I was born, since I was a toddler. So go ahead and let them fucking make up excuses for you as to why they're fucking perverts and traffickers. They're doing it for money. It doesn't have anything to do with being mad at somebody. They've been doing it for money since I was born. I don't think that I have very much room on my phone. It usually cuts off at about a little bit after this amount of time, just because I've got other videos on my phone with information that it's like videos that I kind of messed up with. So I have to like go back and like just make bullet points of everything that I need from those videos and then delete them. And then I'll have a little bit of room on my phone. It would also make sense for me to get a memory card, but I just don't ever have money. People make sure that I don't have money. It's really important to them that I never have any fucking money. It's really fucking horrible. But on the same hand, I'm trying not to be like them, these like money grubbers who are just obsessed with money, 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 money. You know what I mean? That's all that they motherfuckers can fucking even see. So I'm trying not to be like them. I'm trying to pride myself on my resourceful, you know, in my resourceful nature and, you know, in my ability to turn nothing into something and to appreciate what I do have. You know, I do have this cell phone. I do have phone service. And, you know, I have an hour and 30 minutes worth of room on my phone and space. And, you know, and I have the ability to speak out and speak up. And you know, so I think that that's